Thank you so much, Francis, for that generous introduction. I have to tell you that I'm especially honored to be introduced by Francis today because our friendship goes back to the mid-1990s when my husband, Stephen, was the founding editor of Civilization, the wonderful magazine of the Library of Congress, and Francis was his highly capable deputy editor. The magazine unfortunately fell victim to the first wave of infatuation with the internet and lost its funding, but Francis has gone on to be a top editor at the Washington Post. As I've been traveling around the country talking about Queen Elizabeth II, the one consistent question that I have heard is, what did you learn that surprised you? Well, the answer is that it seemed like there was something unexpected around almost every corner. In the course of my research, I made numerous discoveries about the way the Queen goes about her job and about aspects of her character and personality that people either don't know about or don't fully appreciate. One of my main goals in writing Elizabeth the Queen was to part the curtain and tell what she's really like, taking the reader as close as possible to Elizabeth, the human being, the wife and the mother and the friend, as well as the highly respected world leader. I also wanted to do what none of her other biographers, all of them English, had done, which is to explain her strong connection to the United States. Not only has she been to this country 11 times, 5 of them on private holidays, the most vacation time she has ever spent anywhere outside her private estates. Some of her closest friends are Americans, which may be one of the biggest surprises. She has also known every president from Harry Truman to Barack Obama, with the exception of Lyndon Johnson, who tried but failed to meet her. I remember being impressed when an official at the American Embassy in London told me that during the memorial service at St. Paul's Cathedral after the 9/11 attacks, the Queen sang every single word of the American national anthem. And I would bet that there aren't any presidents who can sing all the words to God Save the Queen. Since we are here today on the National Mall, I thought I would focus on the Queen's fondness for this country and its people, both little known and well known, and in so doing, illuminate corners of her life that can help you understand her better. Her relationships with American presidents have most often played out against state visits here and in Britain. When Elizabeth first came to Washington in 1951, she was a 25-year-old princess, only months away from becoming queen. Harry Truman was completely smitten, announcing that when everyone becomes acquainted with you, they immediately fall in love with you. Like those who followed him, Truman was surprised that Elizabeth was so much more approachable than she seemed in her public image. Dwight Eisenhower had the advantage of having known Princess Elizabeth during World War II when he was in London as Supreme Allied Commander. He had what he called a devoted friendship with her parents, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. And he entertained the teenage princess at dinner in his London apartment, where he served her prime ribs of beef, cooked according to Ike's instructions, nice and rare. Her first state visit to this country as queen in 1957 was given short shrift by her other biographers, but through contemporary accounts, archival research, and an interview with the only remaining witness with an intimate view of the visit, I discovered what a groundbreaking moment it was for the 31-year-old queen. Ruth Buchanan, who was the widow of Eisenhower's chief of protocol, was with the royal couple throughout their 6 days in the United States, which began in Jamestown and Williamsburg, ended in New York City, and included an impromptu visit to a supermarket in suburban Maryland. Ruth gave me an invaluable personal perspective on Elizabeth's conduct as queen and her relationship with her husband, Prince Philip. One of my favorite descriptions was of a moment on the president's airplane when Philip was immersed in the sports section of the newspaper and ignoring his wife's questions as she wrote postcards to their children. When she pressed him, he got flustered. It was so like what an ordinary wife would do when her husband wasn't paying attention to her, Ruth told me. She also noted that Elizabeth was very certain and very comfortable in her role and very much in control. Yet once when Ruth was waiting at the White House for her husband to escort the Queen to a limousine, Ruth heard her roaring with laughter at one of the protocol chief's jokes. You didn't realize that she had that kind of a hearty laugh, Ruth said. But the minute she rounded the corner and saw me, she straightened up. And this combination of public dignity and private merriment exists to this day. The 1957 visit was remarkable for its informality and spontaneity, and the number of unguarded glimpses of the Queen seen by the public. She had specifically asked to see what she called an American football match. And before the game between University of Maryland and University of North Carolina, she went down on the field and chatted with the players. The governor of Maryland explained to her the history of football going all the way back to the Greeks and Romans, and the president of the University of Maryland even showed her how to throw a forward pass. She watched the game intently, but she did seem perturbed whenever the players threw blocks. On the way to the stadium, she had spotted a supermarket, which was a phenomenon that was then unknown in Britain, and she asked if she could see how American women went shopping. Well, a visit was hastily arranged after the game, startling hundreds of shoppers. Wearing a full-length mink coat, she and Prince Philip explored the supermarket like a pair of anthropologists in a foreign culture. They wandered the aisles, chatting with customers, inspecting the children's seats in the shopping carts, and marveling at the quantity and range of products. The Queen was particularly intrigued by the frozen chicken pot pies, and she quizzed the store's manager about refrigeration techniques and how the checkout counters worked. At her insistence, they arrived at their next stop, New York City, by water, which is a vista she had been dreaming about since childhood. She squealed with delight. "Whee!" she said when she first caught sight of the skyline of Lower Manhattan, which she compared to a row of great jewels. That evening, during a white-tie dinner at the Waldorf Astoria, guests were treated to a closed-circuit television image of her eating a three-course meal, which was a highly unusual sight, since she was never supposed to be filmed while she was eating. When the royal couple left for the airport after midnight, their limousine was lit up, so crowds lining the street could see her in her glittering evening gown and her diamond tiara. Many of the women along the streets were wearing bathrobes, and they had curlers in their hair. "Look at all those people in their night clothes," Elizabeth said to Philip. "I certainly wouldn't come out in my night clothes to see anyone drive by, no matter who they were." The British people felt left out as they read in their newspapers about the Queen's spur-of-the-moment walkabouts and relaxed style that they had never seen. To them, she was still a distant presence, and it would be several decades before mingling with ordinary people would become standard procedure. Why did she have to cross the Atlantic to become real? Wondered one daily newspaper in London after she returned home.